Hi, my name's JJ Winlove. I'm the writer and director of June Again. What inspired me to make this film was really a fascination that I've always had with memory. I'm really interested in how much of our personality is defined by our memory, and also the idea of, who are we without our memories? We're kind of, I think, without our memories, we have, no sense of experience, and I think, we're so defined by those memories that without them, I think that we're really lost. So I love the idea of exploring a character who doesn't have that key part of themselves and how they navigate the world. Another thing that inspired me to make the film was I love the idea of a character who's given the opportunity to see what the world looks like without them in it, and to see how their family has moved on without them. I think, in that sense, it's almost a fairy tale. This woman who comes back into her family and sees how all the members of her family have kind of taken her carefully made plans for them all and taken them off in their own directions, and her kind of dismay that no one's done what she carefully laid out for them. And, it gives her a second chance to actually realize that maybe that's a better thing, and to let her own family members kind of make their own decisions. Well, the biggest challenges with making June Again was the budget. I mean, that gave us a lot of constraints, and all of those ended up being good constraints. And, I'm sure, most Australian productions are always a product of the limited budgets that we tend to have. One of the biggest issues that caused was kind of, in an amusing way, was the fact that we, a lot of the story is told in the country, but I was told by the producers that we had to stay within 20 kilometres of the production office, so that we weren't kind of paying extra money for travel and that kind of thing. So it was a real challenge to find the kind of locations we needed that felt like the country within 20 kilometres of the centre of Sydney. So that was a real challenge, and I spent hours kind of trawling through Google Earth and things looking for. We had quite specific ideas about the kind of, a stream and a creek in the middle of nowhere and the countryside, giving that look, while just over the road is a main highway and buildings towering up into the sky. So that was a real challenge, but it was very satisfying once we actually found that. We also, we didn't have a location manager, so we did our own locations, and through Bailey and I, we ended up doing, basically just choosing an area and going letterbox dropping all the streets that looked right, and kind of knocking on doors ourselves, which was, exhausting and took up a lot of our time, but it ended up being really rewarding because we knew what we were looking for, and we were able to have a lot of say and get right to the kind of locations that we wanted, and we met a lot of great people, and so it really kind of informed the way that we used those locations. The process of balancing comedy and drama in the film was tricky. It was a really important aspect for me in that, that I didn't push the comedy too hard and make the film flippant or feel that I was kind of making light of the situation. I mean, dementia is one of the kind of story threads of the story, and obviously that's not something that, it's not at all a funny topic of its own. But what I've always found is that, even in the most gloomy situations in real life, you end up finding comedy moments. You talk to anyone who's dealt with someone who has dementia, and there are hilarious stories. And, when it's like laughing at a funeral. I mean, it's kind of, comedy is something that really helps us to access some of those more tragic moments in a way that's more accessible and palatable. So to me, it was really important that comedy was woven into the drama as well, and finding that balance was something that happened throughout the writing process. And then once I started working with the actors, they all had their own kind of way of weaving comedy into their performances, and that was a really satisfying part of the process. Piece of advice I would give to aspiring creatives and filmmakers would be to work within the limitations of what you have. If you've got zero money, or if you've got very limited equipment, or not many people, then work to that. We've all seen bad short films, and a lot of them, it's a beautiful idea and it's a great concept, but there wasn't the resources to make that work. And so for me, it's always been a case of starting with what I've got and what I can do, and always pushing things a little bit. But, rather than trying to make a huge epic science fiction space opera with $2,000, it's thinking, okay, well, what can I do with that $2,000 where I can really make something, beautiful and truthful and impactful? Going from short films to feature films was a big step. I mean, it was a bigger step than I expected, to be honest. It was, I thought that making a feature film would just be literally like making a longer short film, but I realized that actually there's a lot more to a feature film than there is to a collection of short films. There's so many more roles involved in making a feature film, from the pre-production through the production and into post-production. There's so many different areas of audio and special effects, visual effects, and also in the writing process. I've always found it quite straightforward to conceive a short film because it's something I can hold in my head all at once. But when it came to writing a feature film, that was a real challenge, because I'd find I'd start tinkering with one part of the film and it would undo something I'd done right at the other end of the film. And so something I'm still kind of working through is that trying to hold a whole hour and a half worth of story in my head at once and make a decision that I know and know all the repercussions that decision will make throughout the film. So that was a real challenge. But it's so satisfying making a feature film, because it really has the time to set up the story and really bring the characters to life and get underway and have a sense of pace and change and movement. And that's something that short films they can't do, because it's simply by the limitation of time. Whereas a feature film or TV series really gives that opportunity to expand a story out and do it real justice. One of the things I think people should know about the film before they see it is that it does deal with a difficult subject. It deals with the main character has dementia, but I made sure, and it was really important to me, that this take on it was more of a positive take. It was not a gloomy film. It's not a gloomy take on that, because it's gloomy enough as it is, and a lot of people either have a loved one dealing with it or know people who are dealing with it. It's part of almost all of our lives, and it's something that's covered in a lot of media as well. And I wanted to find a way of dealing with it that was a little bit more uplifting and didn't dwell on the kind of the dark and negative side of it. So that was the mission I gave to myself. The film is a comedy drama, so there's quite a big comedy element in it. How do you make a story that deals with a subject like that funny, and how do you make it kind of lighthearted without being flippant? And that was the challenge that I set, and it made it a fun project to try to crack that. Now, the only other thing I would say about June Again is, in the process of making it, was how wonderful it was to get the cast that we got for the film. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of about the film is particularly the three leads of Noni Hazelhurst, Claudia Carvin and Stephen Curry. The three of them, they'd never worked together before as a trio, and the first time we all got together before we started shooting was amazing. We sat down and went through the script together, and the three of them got a chance to kind of really get to know each other. And from that moment on, it was such a beautiful experience working with those guys and seeing what they brought to the characters in the story. And particularly Noni's performance, when I watched that, it's one of the things I'm most proud of with this film, is how wonderfully she encompasses all the different extremes of the role that she has to play in June Again.